Hey folks, I'm Zach, and today I'm taking my clothes off because it's time to do a back workout. Now, I'm not sure if I can really do this with one hand on the camera, so I'm gonna put it down and start filming again in a second. All right, shoes off and pants off too, because I got shorts under them. All right, perfect. So today I'm on UF campus. I'm in front of the ROTC building, Van Fleet Hall. I'm going to turn the camera because they have a nice setup out here. There's a big old pull-up and push-up area out here and dips for ROTC. You got Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force. I guess Coast Guard just gets screwed. This is the perfect place to do back workouts. Every other workout you can sort of do at home, but unless you have a pull-up bar at home, you gotta go outside somewhere to work back. Now, I'm not sure how I'll film this while I do pull-ups, but I'm gonna try. One. Oh, there's some sort of bug that's landed on my arm. 2, 3, 4, 5. But this video, folks, joking. This video is not about working out. I'm just filming it during my rest periods between sets. This video is about all the times I got indecently propositioned when I was traveling overseas, and there were a lot of times, and they all make really good stories. So let's get started. First country I went to was Israel, and I have to say I didn't have any trouble over there with creepy people. But after that, I went to India once again, no real trouble, and I lived in Malaysia for about half a year. In the capital of Kuala Lumpur. I did some hiking across the country, and I met some interesting people when I was there. For most of my time there, I stayed at a place called the Matahari Lodge, which means like sun or sunrise, I guess. And I learned afterwards that it was a place that had started catering to locals, not always locals of good repute. So it was $4 a night. They had a free breakfast. You stayed in a dormitory room. It seemed all right, but there were a lot of characters there who you wouldn't find at a more reputable location. And one of those characters was named VJ. He was this Indian Malaysian dude who sort of lived in the area, about the same age as me, had really creepy, scraggly facial hair, but otherwise he looked, pretty fit. He eventually got thrown out of the Matahari Lodge, but I'll tell that story in a second. When I first met him, though, it was in the lounge at night with some other friends, and it struck me immediately as like a creep. He started asking me weird questions, but I put him off, and eventually I thought, I'll never see him again, good. But then a couple of days later, I was out at the botanical gardens, and I was just sitting down writing. I was trying to write a book at the time, and VJ appeared out of nowhere, sort of on the steps of this amphitheater I was sitting in. He walked right up to me and said, "Can I step over you?" I was like, "Whoa, dude, get out of here. I'm just trying to read and write, like, buzz off." And he sort of stuck around. He walked up to me at one point and like tried to give me a piece of chicken inside a plastic bag. I was like, "Dude, get out of here. I don't want your food. Don't want to be around you." And he kept hanging around and saying weird stuff to me until finally I said, "Dude, I'm going to break your jaw. Get out of here." And he did, fortunately. And I didn't see him again, but I heard a story from another guest at the Matahari Lodge later. Now, this other guest was an Irish guy who was traveling. Maybe a 40-year-old man, pretty fit. He's a retired firefighter, and very much religious. Like, I know Irish people, I forget if they're Protestant or Catholic. I think it depends on what part of Ireland. But this guy's pretty religious, and he had absolutely no gaydar. So I had seen him a few days ago in the lounge, and VJ, this man who stalked me through a public park, was sitting almost in this Irish firefighter's lap, on his phone saying, "And this is a guy who I was friends with when I was in Turkey, and this is a guy I was friends with when I was..." This is very suspicious stuff. And the firefighter was like, "Oh, yeah, I see. Interesting." But the next day, after VJ had stalked me through a park, I guess he wasn't pleased at being rejected because he had gone up into the lounge that night and done something stupid. I only heard about it the next morning when I was in the sort of eating room having my toast. But yeah, I was just sitting there eating my toast, and this Irish firefighter guy walked in. He looked very, very uncomfortable, angry, you might say. he walked around to me, he's like, that Indian boy, he tried to kiss me. And I was like, first of all, dude, I saw him with you a few days ago. That guy was almost sitting in your lap. How'd you not know this? And this guy just looked so offended. And then I talked to the receptionist. VJ had been kicked out of the hostel. He was no longer allowed in. I should say, by the way, this was in Malaysia, which is a moderate country, but also a very Muslim country. So you can't just go around trying to kiss other dudes in that country. But I think most of my stories actually come from Malaysia, because people there are so not used to gay dudes that a lot of stuff sort of flies under the radar there. People don't notice it, so people could just sort of act out in funny ways. For example, I was at that same park where VJ was sort of stalking me through it, and I was on my way home, and this sort of toothless, homeless looking dude sort of whispered as I walked past him. He said, "Have sex with me?" I turned around, I was like, "Huh? What?" He's like, "Have sex with me." He had like no front teeth, so he was saying, "Have sex with me." I was like, no, I don't want to. And then he just turned and kept walking like that was a normal thing. It makes me feel bad for women, actually, because I'm sure that a woman walking alone, especially in a foreign country where people are a bit sexually repressed, might meet up with some unpleasant proposals like that all the time. But it wasn't just men in Malaysia who gave me trouble. I say trouble in this case in the lightest of senses. I was still staying at that place, the Matahari Lodge, which was not the most reputable of places. But I was friends with the receptionist there. And when I say friends, I mean we were flirting with each other. And I thought we'd probably end up sleeping together. Because, like, I feel like being a receptionist at a hotel in, like, a touristy area, I feel like you get that job in a Muslim country because you don't want to conform to the culture. You do want to, like, sleep around. So, like, fair enough, she was attractive. But the way she went about getting me to sleep with her was probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because I was staying in the downstairs dormitory with all the other guys. There's an elderly Japanese sailor who lived down there. There were a few Arabic guys who I was friends with. One of them was named Mustafa. He sold me a really crappy tent at one point, but that's its own story. And the way this receptionist decided to seal the deal with me was walk down into the dormitory with me, and in front of all of these random, very Muslim men, most of them are Muslim, she said, "Do you want to go upstairs to my room?" I was like, wait, I have been friends with these men for like a month and a half, 2 months. I'm never going to hear the end of this now. But it's all right, she was attractive. I went upstairs to her room. And it only got worse from there, because it turned out she had used her magical receptionist powers to book one of the private 1 or 2 person rooms for 5 days in my name for free, which immediately made me feel like I was some sort of like cheap prostitute. Like she bought my affections by getting me a $6 or $7 room for a few nights. But I gotta be honest, that would have been a lot more, that would have been traumatic if I was not a dude, I guess. Most of these stories I laugh while I tell them because I thought they were hilarious, both then when they were happening and now as I tell them. But that is just like my privilege of being a guy. I don't need to worry about someone, sort of like pushing their affections on me without my consent or my enthusiasm. But anyway, because I am a guy and I'm relatively large and muscular, especially for Southeast Asian countries, my stories are funny rather than traumatic, and I got more of them. So I said I stayed in Malaysia for 6 months, and that's true, but not quite, because the way the visas worked is you could go in, stay for 90 days, don't pay any money for it, but you had to leave after that. You could come back like a week or two later for another 90 days, and that's what I did. I ended up going to Indonesia for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I went back to Malaysia for the last half of my time there. And once again, like Malaysia, Indonesia is a Muslim country. Being gay is outlawed, but because of that, they don't really suspect anyone. So people behave in some pretty funny ways if they are trying to get with a dude. And I was party to some of that. So immediately after I got to Indonesia, It reminded me of India. The traffic was crazy. There were a bunch of these little rickshaw taxis that had like 3 wheels and stuff. It was chaotic, and I was just happy when I got to a hotel, and it was like a capsule hotel, you know. Pretty cheap, but you meet a lot of cool people there, which is better than like staying at a Holiday Inn or something where you barely meet anyone. But immediately, before I even took a shower, I was just washing my face after my flight and stuff. Someone started hitting on me, and they offered to do to perform services for money, and I said no, thank you. And then later on, a few days later, when I was hanging out with the other people at the hotel, they were talking about this lady who had offered services, not just to me, but to several men, apparently for quite bad prices compared to the other services available in that country. And it turned out this lady was actually a lady boy, and dodged the bullet with that one, I guess. But once again, I must just have a bad skill at choosing hotels, because this one had interesting people once again. When you're traveling in countries that have lots of foreign people, like people from all over the world. I was in Jakarta, it's the capital of Indonesia. I like Kuala Lumpur, it's an international city. There's people from everywhere. If you go to a hotel, you can find people from 15 or 20 different countries there. And it's fun to talk to them. Unfortunately, some people use that fun conversational environment as a place to try to seduce you. And the thing is, you never see it coming. I was talking with an older man, maybe 40s or 50s. He looked like he might have been from Malaysia, like a businessman or something. But eventually, he offered to take me to a different hotel and pay for the room. He said, this hotel is sort of cheap, isn't it? Why don't we go to a more expensive hotel and get a room for us? I was like, oh, sorry, buddy. I was just comparing travel photos with you. I don't know what you were going for. And I think the one good thing about being a Muslim country was that after I expressed my disinterest, he didn't push it. He sort of just like let it lie. But our conversation definitely ended. But it seemed like he was just sharing travel pictures and stories to try to get me into bed, which is not the best. And I realize now, putting all these stories in one video might be a mistake, because I'm sort of making it sound like foreign countries are just like full of creeps and people try to take advantage, but that's not true at all. For every encounter I talked about in this video, I've met dozens of people who were just nice, pleasant people I ended up being friends with, or people who helped me out of a bad situation. So don't let anything in this video dissuade you from traveling. I think every encounter I talk about, out of all of them, nothing was actually dangerous. No one if the moment I said no in almost every case, people sort of took that as a no and walked away from it. I never felt like in danger or someone like trying to drug me or something like that. So like, travel, whether you're a guy or a girl or anything, it's not usually dangerous in that sort of way. You don't need to worry about that. But anyway, more stories. I ended up going to Thailand after all my time in Malaysia and Indonesia. Why Thailand? Because I had ended up with a girlfriend and she was going to Thailand, so I went with her. And Thailand was absolutely wild. I stayed in Phuket and Bangkok and a couple smaller cities just for hiking. But in those two big cities, you would walk down the street and people are trying to sell you whippets, they're trying to sell you all sorts of illegal drugs. You walk by a dozen massage places. At each one, there's a few girls outside. I'm hoping they were women, but they could have actually been underage girls. And as you walk by, they say, massage? Oh, you're so handsome. You want massage? And it was, I had a girlfriend, so I was always like, nope, no, thank you. The only time I got actually uncomfortable there was when I was walking to meet my girlfriend, and one of the massage girls meowed at me like a cat. I can't even imitate the sound. I could try. It was like, meow. And it was, ugh. A person shouldn't meow at you like a cat. That was so creepy. But I didn't really have any encounters in Thailand, just because I was dating. So I ended up being with larger groups for a lot of my time there. And even when I wasn't with my girlfriend and her sort of, she was going for an international bartending course. So while I wasn't with her group, I had friends from the hostel I was staying at. I wasn't usually by myself there. But the place where I was by myself was in Bali. I got stuck in Bali during COVID. I'd been waiting to start a job at a gym, and of course gyms all closed when the virus started, so I had to stay in Bali about 4 months while I got a teaching certification and got a teaching job. So I had some interesting experiences there, to say the least. Now I should preface this by saying that of all the places I've traveled to, I'd say Bali felt like the safest at night. The only unsafe thing, in my opinion, was the dogs there, because people didn't look after their dogs too much. They'd leave them off the leash a lot of the time and just let them wander around. There were definitely street dogs that would chase you, or I never had to run from a dog, but I had dogs like sort of come at me a few times. I felt like I was going to get bitten. Never did. Had one weird experience where I went in to pet a dog, which was a mistake, because the dog, as I went to pet it, it went to bite my hand, and our combined motion sort of put my hand right down the dog's throat, and I pulled it out really fast. Like, the dog just like deep throated my hand for a second. I pulled it out, and the dog looked at me, and I looked at the dog, and we were like, that didn't happen. Let's keep walking. Which was bad, because it looked like a lassie dog, you know? It looked like a cute dog you could pet, but it just tried to bite me the moment I went in. Anyway, this video is not about dogs, it's about people acting like dogs. So, I said it's pretty safe there at night. At least it seems safe to me. I was taller than most of the people there and stuff. But I did lots of walking at night. I like to, I'd like to experience a place I go to, and like, I walked all over Bali. I walked sometimes like 10 hours a day. I walked all the way down to the south end of the island. I walked through a lot of weird areas that had like local markets and local houses and stuff. Because a lot of people, they have like stores operated out of their house. So you could buy some really cool stuff there. But at one point, I was walking at night. And I'd been through this area before. I sort of knew the paths and the roads, the very narrow roads, lots of walls topped in crushed glass and like nails and stuff, so no one could climb over them to steal things. But I was walking down this road, and I realized someone was following me on a motor scooter. And they didn't look like an intimidating figure or anything. They had a helmet on. I had like a hoodie on. But they were following me, there's no doubt. I don't have much of like a spy sense, but you could tell if someone's following you. And this person wasn't being very subtle about it. Like, I would walk, they'd sort of pull up on their scooter, and let me keep walking, and they'd pull further up on their scooter, and it was really creepy. Eventually, I stopped and let them catch up. So this person pulled up next to me, and they had taken their helmet off. And it looked like a woman. But when she started talking to me, her voice was sort of like raspy a bit, you know what I mean? And when you're in Southeast Asia, you generally know that means someone's transgender. They call themselves ladyboys there, so don't cancel me for saying that. That's what everyone else says there. But she invited me back to her apartment, and I said, no thanks, I'm not interested in going back to. First of all, I'm not really interested in getting with someone like that. And second, not with a person who looks like sort of like a creepy movie ghost with the hoodie pulled over their face and everything. And like, I said no, but they did not stop following me. This lady, never caught her name, continued following me through these dark alleyways, eventually onto a sort of market street. And as I walked down the market street, she would pull 20 yards ahead of me on the other side of the street, park the scooter, wait for me to walk past, then pull 20 yards ahead of me on the street. And in my head, I was thinking, I don't feel intimidated by this person. I'm not like, I don't have a weapon on me. I don't need one. I'm not worried about getting attacked or anything, but I was walking home to the guest house I was staying at, and I did not want to lead a creepy person home to the guest house I was staying at, because then they would have access to me when I'm sleeping and my stuff. So I was formulating a plan in my head, and that plan involved walking home on a slightly different path than usual, and on that path it was all shops that had the shutters closed at night. There was no one there, there was no cameras. I was planning to knock this person off her scooter and take the scooter, and I'd be like, oh cool, I have a free scooter now, and this person can't follow me to my home. In the end, it was sort of a letdown, because at the end I got myself psyched up. I wanted to do this. I never mugged anyone or anything, but I was like, this person's literally stalking me back to where I live. I could steal her scooter. But no, she stopped her scooter in front of an apartment complex and said, are you sure you don't want to come up? I was like, Yes, I'm very short. I go away. And I walked home without anyone following me. Fortunately, that's probably the creepiest of all the experiences I had like that. And as far as being overseas goes, that was my last sort of experience that way. I mean, I'll be honest, when you get massages in, I never got any in Thailand, I had the girlfriend, but when you get massages in Indonesia or Malaysia, they're very cheap. Some of them are like $5 for 90 minutes, and I didn't have any trouble with those ones. But you do have trouble with some of them, and by trouble I mean they start touching you near the end of the massage. Then they ask at the end if you want them to keep going, and in that case you pay them like $5 and they'll do something. Which I understand it. That's how the workers actually make most of their money, but it just feels dirty. So that's a different culture, I guess. I don't think people would try that here in America unless they're like, you know, Jeffrey Epstein's masseuse. I do remember when they published his black book of phone numbers and addresses, he had a lot of massage girls in his address book. I assume they were the happy ending kind that you'd find over in Southeast Asia. But that's the end of all my exciting encounters overseas. But I had one here in America too. It was actually right here, right outside college campus. I was in line to go into a club called Barcade, which is like a bar with drinks, a dancing room, but also like pinball machines and arcade and like skee ball. But the entrance to Barcade is right near another club called UC, University Club. When my mom went to college here, they all called it the Yuck for UC. Not in a homophobic way, because it is a gay club, but because UC, Yuck. Anyway, the entrance to the UC, the gay club, is right next to the entrance of Arcade. So while my friend was waiting in line, I walked over to the entrance of UC, out to like the standing balcony area, to see what was going on. And within 10 seconds of me standing at the balcony, a lovely bearded man asked if I wanted his philately services. And I said no thanks. But I mean, I was asking for it just by going to that, standing outside that sort of club. But it makes you feel so weird. It made me feel happy to be a guy, because I didn't feel like traumatized or like attacked or like a victim or anything. I feel like for women it's a bad thing if someone hits on them aggressively like that, because it might make someone feel like defenseless or like they're a potential victim. But I think aside from like the manly urge to like shove someone away like, no bro, I'm straight, I think men like being indecently propositioned like that, because in the back of your head, whether you're straight or gay or anything, when someone's propositioning you, the back of your head says, oh, they think I'm hot, nice. So it's a good thing, I'd say. It's definitely a confidence boost when it happens. It makes you feel a bit awkward because, I mean, it makes you feel more sympathetic to women, because when someone indecently propositions you, you know suddenly that they were thinking of you as an object, that they want you. And for a straight guy, they want you in a way that you don't usually even want to think of. So it's a weird feeling, but as a guy, I think it's generally a good thing. At least in retrospect, you're like, wow, they think I'm attractive. That's good. It's a confidence booster. And I definitely understand where they're coming from, especially in the Muslim countries I was living and working in, because people can't have a gay club in a Muslim country. You can't do that. People do have to just sort of like shoot their shot and hope for the best in that situation. Like they can't just openly go about that stuff there. So I understand where they're coming from. Anyway, folks, I have plenty more stories along those lines actually, but I'll have to make another video about it. Peace out. See you all later. I still have 10 pull-ups left to do to get my 100. And whatever happens, folks, try to like subconsciously think of the best outcome. You get propositioned, just remember that's because they think you're attractive. Actually, that's a pretty creepy way to end a video. So let me just say, if you're on the other side of that and you're doing the propositioning, do it in a bar, a party, a club. Not in the middle of the street though. That could definitely spin someone's day the wrong way. Anyway, folks, See you all later, and stay safe out there.